Hello, you're welcome. So, slightly different show for you today. It's of the GAA family, but club as opposed to county, which is obviously dominating at the moment. We are all about Na Fianna GAA Club in Dublin on today's show. So, you may remember last winter we went up to Slotneil in Derry, very famous club, and we talked to any number of people there, people who've been around since the beginning of the club, current players, some former legendary players right across the four codes and beyond. And it was a really interesting show. And the genesis of it is that AIB, who sponsor our GAA coverage, are obviously very much about the club as well as county. And at the start of the sponsorship relationship, they said, well, listen, we'd love you to, maybe go out and profile a club or two. And we thought that was an interesting way to cover the club game. Sometimes there is real universality in being very specific, and the specifics of one club, whilst not applicable to every club, they kind of tell a story that's familiar to all clubs. And so we went to Slotneil and people really liked that show, and so Na Fianna in Dublin we thought was quite a different club, and we went there last month and we're going to bring that to you now. So again, AIB sponsor our GAA coverage. We thank them. They're proud sponsors of club and county, and they celebrate the joy, dedication and support that lies at the heart of Gaelic games in every community and player across the nation. So we had a great night at Na Fianna. I mean, it's an amazing facility, you would have to say, in Drumcondra. Brilliant clubhouse. We got there, the place was a hive of activity on the AstroTurf pitch right beside the clubhouse. There were, 7, 8, 9-year-old territory playing hurling, lots of people around, just very vibrant. There was a 21st birthday party on one part of the clubhouse. There was our event in another. So it was really kind of alive in the very best sense. Lots of young people around. And we sat down. We have 3 panels for you. We felt this would be the best way to do it. We have some legends of the club, glory days gone by. Senan Connell, he was part of that famous team, the Kieran McGeeney team as well, who joined up, and Desi Farrell. And they won 3 Dublin Senior Football Championships in a row from 99 to 01. And we also have Mary Nevin, and she was part of the brilliant ladies team that were also winning around then. And they were great together. So they're on the 3rd panel. We have a current players panel. Some of those will need no introduction at all. And then to start things off, we have, history of the club. Na Fianna would be talked about now as super club. And, by dint of population as well as everything else, it has become a super club. But, GAA super clubs are of a certain type as well. And with Na Fianna, very humble beginnings. And as you'll hear in this first panel, they were one of the first to start the nurseries. They got the youngsters in. Nurseries are just part of every GAA club now, but Na Fianna were one of the clubs that really pioneered that, as we'll hear. So without further ado, we'll have our legends on the way, we'll have our current players, but first up, it's the history of the club. It's 70 years old, very recently, just celebrated its 70-year anniversary. And as you'll hear, there's like a real rich history full of characters. So our first panel, as you'll hear, is John Horan, who you'll know is former GAA president very recently. We have Greta Gray, who is the current president of Na Fianna, and we have Anya O'Leary, who gives, she's a lifelong member. She has seen it all, and she gives a great, great history of the club. So, it is, we think, a really, it's an interesting way to cover the club game at large. So many different clubs. So a deep dive into Na Fianna we thought would be interesting. So without further ado. So the plan this evening is to learn a bit more about one of the great famous clubs, not just of Dublin, but I think known all around the country. And we're going to do that across 3 panels, with thanks to our friends AIB. Our first panel are going to give us a sense of the history of the club, and we've got some brilliant people to tell us about Na Fianna. So, in no particular order, to my left is Greta Gray. Greta is the president of Na Fianna. She's a former chairperson of the Dublin Camogie board, a founding member of the Na Fianna Camogie section, and much more besides. Greta, you're very welcome. Anya O'Leary is here as well. Anya, a lifelong member of Na Fianna. She played Camogie as a goalkeeper. Don't ask me why. But she played in goals, football, handball, played senior camogie for Dublin as well, and was very much part of founding the nursery here in the early 90s, 1991, one of the first in the GAA. Anya, great to have you with us. Thanks so much. And then a man plenty of you will know, I'm sure, out there. John Horan was the 39th president of the GAA. He is a former chairman of the Leinster Council and, most importantly, lifelong member of Na Fianna. John, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
So we can start in any number of places. Just to give people, Greta, a very brief history of the club. Started in the 50s, 1955, April, so the anniversary coming up, 201 members. And these days we're at 4,000 members. So we can call that a success story. Well, memories, thoughts of those early 50s, 60s and where the club was?
Well, my earliest memories was always going to matches, because you see, if you can't beat them, you have to join them, and just being a supporter. And then I got this famous or infamous phone call from Sean, the late Sean Turkin, to say they were starting Camogie, and I just laughed at him because I said, Sean, I hadn't a clue about Camogie. And I said, but I could always carry the magic water bottle, because I think in matches those days, they always had somebody carrying the water bottle. So I went along to a meeting and I came out as chairman of the Camogie section, and it went on from there. Of course, we didn't have it all our own way, because Sean Turkin was a man with vision, but there were certain diehards in the club who didn't feel that they should have women actually members, and especially not full-time members with a vote at the annual general meeting. Of course, the same happened when we went to the Camogie board to register. We were kindly asked, aren't there enough clubs for you to join in Dublin without starting your own? But eventually they allowed us in, and then we became, the club membership welcomed us eventually, because we had more to offer than the men had to offer. I assure you in that respect. But they're my memories, and the first matches, because we had our first team was a Junior A team which won the championship in 1970, and then we had the Junior C League team which won the league in 72 or 3 or something. And then we started juveniles, which is really the foundation of any club, or their juvenile section. So they're all my memories. And we became very involved in the club, fundraising, bingo, and if I should dare mention it, juvenile discos, fundraising, which were an absolute nightmare. But we progressed, and many of the Camogie players became administrators, and quite a few of them represented Dublin from junior, senior, right down. And, I think in that respect, we've been very successful.
Yeah, you sure have. Greta, I'm afraid to ask this question. Why were the juvenile discos a nightmare?
Well, they were held down here, and we had to have somebody on that door, because we had some, what would you call them?
Hooligans.
Hooligans, well, yes. Call them hooligans. Certain ones with certain ideas that if they paid in, which was only 25 pence in those days, they would open that door and allow their friends in.
Ah.
And then there was, I know I probably shouldn't be saying this about them, because, that's a long time ago, but we had to have somebody patrolling the ladies' toilets, because the windows there would often see a little hand coming in with little alcoholic liquor in a bottle.
Never.
Oh, that was a nightmare.
You, we should say, made your Camogie debut as a player at the age of 39.
At the age of 39, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it was a case of they had so many players and they needed another one. And especially they wanted somebody in goal. Now, I never played Camogie in my life. But I said, well, I don't mind, because most of them were young enough to be my daughters. And so we did. We won a Junior A league. Junior C league, sorry, it was Junior C. I was kind of advancing myself there too far. Yeah, so that was it.
We had Scoretgate in 2025. But I was reading an interview you gave before about just how strict the dress code was in Camogie.
Absolutely.
So it was very much gym slip, white blouse and thick black tights. And you said one day one of our players was wearing nylon tights and the referee sent her off.
That's correct.
So these are different times, to say the least.
Oh, they're different times. I mean, I'm fascinated by the whole skirt thing there last year. When you think that we had to go out and play in one of those.
Wow.
And then in 1973, I think, came in divided skirts and then ordinary skirts. And now it's all shorts.
Yeah.
I don't think that a lot of the players that we had in 1969-70 would have actually worn shorts.
Oh, really?
Because they were very conservative. That's why they wore the gym slips.
You probably can't believe the change in this club now to go from 55 and 200 members and the Camogie getting started and then the football afterwards to now 4,000 members, 200 teams. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary.
It's unbelievable because when we started, you knew everybody in the club. You could name everybody. Every team, you knew all the players. You knew all the juvenile Camogie players. Nowadays, I mean, if you knew the members on the senior team, it would be the height of it.
I'd say they all know you somehow. Anya, when did you get involved?
Well, thanks to Greta Gray and Sean Clark in setting up the Camogie, I attended Scoil Katrina. We were based in Eccles Street inside in town. And the school had to be built because Eccles Street was falling apart. And I came to here in 1972, thanks to Greta and Sean Clark and having set up the Camogie. I was sports mad, just came in the gate and with a hurley and slither and started playing Camogie with Greta and Betty Bryan and a whole heap of Sheila Hallahan and a whole heap of other girls. I think there was about 5 or 7 of us that came from Scoil Katrina, so that was a great backup for the team that was already established there. And Sean Clarkin introduced me to handball, our 60 by 30 handball alley. So you got a little bit of coaching, aim your shoulder at where you want to send the ball, bounce the ball and hit it against the wall. 3 games of 21. And I'm proud to say that Greta and her sister Dorothy and myself, on the odd Sunday night, we'd come down. Do you remember that, Greta? And we'd play a 3-way game. Moving on then, I got involved with the nursery through Colm O'Callaghan Senior. Neil O'Callaghan's dad, the present Dublin manager, he was approached by John Quinn to start up a nursery. A gap had come, there were no juveniles as such. And I was asked, would I give Colm a helping hand? Well, boy, that was the best day of my life. I just loved that. We started with 5 or 6, 7 kids. Neil O'Callaghan was one of those, a couple from Scullmovie, some of their friends. And week by week, the numbers started to increase. We started off with a couple of footballs. You throw them a football, then you throw it and let it bounce once. It still gives me goosebumps when I think of the thrill that you got, because some of these kids talk about 2 left feet and no coordination. So we only allow them to come at 7 years of age. Now they're hardly born and they're into the nursery. And that's thanks to Niall Cooper and Mark and all the people there. But the numbers, little did we know back in the early 90s when that nursery started, what would develop out of that. The families that have come through the gate, then we'd cajole parents to get involved with the coaching. I remember pleading with my husband, look at the parents, we need somebody to teach us how to coach. And he got Paddy Clark from, I think he was up the north. He came down and did a coaching session with some of the parents. But the crack we had, the kids loved and enjoyed the games, and we didn't put any pressure on them. Enjoyment was the key. Word went out, and the numbers just increased and increased, not to what they are today, but that's where it started with Cullamo Senior. Paddy Brosnan and myself, Pillar Caffrey came on board, Aidan Collins, Richie, Pat, lots of people. There's no point in me mentioning names because I'll forget some. The hurling then developed out of that for the juveniles, and Anne Ryan cajoled people to get involved with that age group then for the Camogie. Little did we know what would develop out of that. We had our senior footballers achieved 3 county finals in a row, 3 in a row, senior footballers. Well, the nursery and the under-9s, as we call them at the time, they were just in awe. You know, Westlife was popular at the time. But boy, did we have our pin-ups. We had Sen and Connell. I mean, by gee, he's still good looking. Even at this stage.
Is Sen in the room yet? Ah, for God's
we
sake.
had
Don't be giving him a big head.
Don't be giving him a big head. We had J.O. I mean, for heaven's sake.
There was a good-looking man.
There was a good-looking man. Desi Farr, maybe, well, and I will leave that to yourselves. But the momentum that 3 in a row gathered for everybody in the club, the way it lifted the club to another level. So if you can imagine, Greta started off the Camogie, and that was a level. And then the nursery started, and then that progressed. Then the senior footballers came along and achieved their 3 in a row. And you had Geezer and Des Mackin and these people. Unfortunately, they didn't beat Crossmaglen that day in the All-Ireland final. But when they came back on the open-top bus, all the juveniles were in the hall in Skullcatrina to greet them, and they were greeted like heroes, you know, and they will never be forgotten. Na Fianna then, well, we're in Glasnevin. We would never be seen as a stronghold for hurling, like country teams, but not at all. So there's no hurling in Glasnevin. Also, Glasnevin, it was an older generation of people that lived in the area, so there weren't many families. Now it's totally different. You have all the schools around, and we have our GPO, Mark Cooper, going into the schools promoting the games. But it was never known as a stronghold for hurling. And then what happens? Neil O'Callaghan takes over the senior hurling team, notwithstanding that many, many managers, many, many coaches, many, many hurlers that played all down through the years and didn't achieve the heights that we did in 2025. But the effort and the coaching and the pure heart that was given from those guys was carried through and has been carried through, and please God will always be carried through. Neil O'Callaghan, no stranger, we all know him now as the Dublin manager. Like, Neilo was one of the first people in the nursery, Joe. Then the GAC in Croke Park, it was suggested, because there was a lot of argy-bargy to do with water boys coming onto the pitch or the mentors coming onto the pitch, and there was a whole heap of people running in from the sideline giving bottles of water Maria to the players, and the referees were having a hard job trying to control that. So the GAC came up with the idea that we'll organise to have water boys that will be at the side of the pitch, 2 at either side, at the Hogan stand and at the Cusack stand. So Sean O'Leary, my husband at the time, was secretary of the GAC. So Colm O'Callaghan, son of Colm Senior, Owen Brannock, Snowy, that's heavily involved with Waterford, Neil O'Callaghan and Peadar O'Leary were the 4 water boys. In 1997 was the first year. 1997, Clare beat Tipperary in Croke Park. Those 4 guys were in the dressing room, listening to Ger Lucknan. We won't say what he was saying, but they were there. They got to experience being in an All-Ireland final dressing room, filling the water bottles, trying to slide in and out and get the water into the bottles and not be seen and not be in the way. But they got to experience that. So Neil O'Callaghan is no stranger to Croke Park. He cut his teeth there as a water boy for a few years. And I would be saying to people, just keep an eye as far as the Dublin hurlers are concerned. Neil O'Callaghan isn't there for the fun of it.
Yeah.
The team achieved beating Limerick last year with 14 men, not just 15 men. We had Conor McHugh, wouldn't really be seen as a hurler, more a footballer. Served his time with Jim Gavin for a while. Nilo got him into the senior team in Na Fianna, and now he's there with Dublin. What did he do with Cian Lynch? 10 seconds before Cian Lynch knew what he was going to do, Conor had it already sussed out and was ahead of him. These guys, these Limerick hurlers with All-Ireland medals hanging out of their pockets, and we just put them away. So just keep an eye out for Neil O'Callaghan. He's doing a great job with the senior hurlers.
Well, it's amazing to hear you two kind of take us from the beginnings and then that very exciting time in the 90s, which sounds amazing, by the way, and kind of the genesis of what we're seeing today. So exciting. To round it off, John, then you were asked to present the trophy. Jarlath Burns said, well, listen, if anyone should present the All-Ireland Hurling Trophy to Na Fianna, you're here, you should do it. So you got that honour. So, I mean, that caps off an amazing day.
Well, absolutely. I actually said no to him when he asked me. And Carmel Gray convinced me in over a cup of tea at half time, no, you should do it. So I did it. And I know the picture has kind of gone viral. And I suppose if you say, does the club mean anything to John Horn? Well, that picture, I think, means 1,000 words. Like, you know.
And try and put into words, where was your head and where was your heart when, you know, you were a lifelong Na Fianna member and you're handing over the All-Ireland of all things?
Well, I suppose, I mean, most people would have said everyone in the club would have dreamt about it, but was it ever going to really happen? And it happened. And just to be that close to the team and, you know, to be that involved in that way was just a great personal honour to get it, like, you know.
Yeah. What memories do you want to share with us? I mean, the way Anya talks about the 90s, it sounds, you know, amazing, kind of rock and roll and lift off. You were obviously around a bit before that as well.
Yeah, I suppose I had a role. I was teaching down in Vincent's school, and it was kind of Na Fianna getting someone on the staff down there. And as Anya said, in the 80s and that, we were struggling with underage to get teams out. So there was an awful lot of twisting of arms and encouraging young fellas. And I'll admit it now that I'm retired, but I went down and knocked on room 2 one day after the Christmas exams, and we were going out in the 15 championship, and I called the young lad out, and I just said to him, look, can't change your mark, but I can make the comment on your report very positive for the Christmas. So I said, any chance you'll come out and play for us on Sunday? He actually came out, and you know what? He has become a lifelong member of Na Fianna, and he'll always say that definitely helped him. And then it was probably 2 years later, we were struggling with an under-16 championship team. We had a lot of soccer players in Vincent, so I did a deal with them. I said, if you come and play for Na Fianna on a Saturday afternoon, you can play your soccer on a Sunday morning, and let's see how we go. And we got to the county final. We actually lost it to Ballymount Kickhams. But the funny thing was, 2 of those lads ended up in the 1990 panel with the senior football team that won the 3 in a row. They gave up soccer and stayed with Na Fianna. So we lost nobody to the soccer, but we actually gained. And 2 years after that deal with under 16, that group of lads went on and won the Leinster Senior Cup in soccer, much to my amazement, like, you know, but it happened.
So, like, what did you put down? This mark, not as bad as it looks. He's a great young fella.
Well, but he stayed here, so it was obviously good enough.
Okay.
Like, you know.
Because, I mean, it's such a rich sporting area. Obviously, Jason Sherlock, Desi Farrell, Kenny Cunningham as well. He was in the school.
Sherlock, there's a story to Sherlock. Sherlock was playing down in Ballyhay, down in Cork, and he was illegal. Brian Talty saw him playing for the school, so we had to go to the Mercy Committee in Croke Park, put our hands up and say, Jason played illegally in Cork. He got suspended. The suspension then was lifted, and he got to play for the Dublin Miners that year, and it all took off after that for him.
Wow.
And there's a funny story with Jason, because I could see Jason was becoming probably one of the first commercial entities within the GAA world, and you could see he was doing gigs for this company, that company. And I spoke to Jimmy Gray, and I says, Jimmy, this young lad is only 19, he's going to be abused. So says, we need to do something for him. So Jimmy said, I'll organise for you to bring him out to meet Kevin Moran before he goes on a premiership programme in RTE. So we went out, and at that time, Jason was playing with Na Fianna, he was playing with Shamrock Rovers. There was talk of him going to Liverpool and obviously playing for Dublin. And Kevin talked to him, and it all went on grand. And Kevin's advice to him, I was involved in Na Fianna managing the senior team. Kevin's advice to him was, play with Rovers, play with Dublin. forget about playing for the club. So here was me bringing him out to meet Kevin Moran. And he did become his agent and worked for him. And I'm not going to get into the figures, but he had a deal at the time. And Kevin rang the company and the figure was multiplied by 3 in Jason's favour. Wow. So he was being messed about. But the idea of me bringing him to Kevin Moran and Kevin Moran telling him not to play for the team I was managing was a bit of an irony.
You mentioned Jimmy Gray there, Greta's husband. I mean, we should touch on the Gray family because I know your late husband, Jimmy, Greta. Well, I mean, I saw him described as almost the godfather of Dublin GAA. Seems to have had an extraordinary legacy. I mean, every role from referee, player, right the way up to founding member in Na Fianna, chairman, president, chairman of the Leinster Council, gave Kevin Heffernan the call to come and manage Dublin. I mean, his fingerprints are everywhere. To give a sense, I suppose, of who you married and his love for GAA, tell us about your honeymoon.
Oh, yes. Well, we set off. I wanted to go to Jersey for my honeymoon, but I don't know why I wanted to go to Jersey, but I did. But no, he said, no, we tour around Ireland, much nicer that time of the year, September. So we set off, and then he said, well, our first stop will have to be Kilkenny. Walsh Cup match on the Sunday. The hurl was in the boot. The boots were in the boot. I don't know what else was in the boot. But anyway, that's where we ended up. And that was we were married on the Saturday. On the Sunday, he played a Walsh Cup match in Kilkenny. They didn't even win. I wouldn't mind if they had won, but they didn't.
I think I said the night of his book launch, I was the pupil, he was the master. He most definitely should have been a president of the GAA. I came along in a different era when there was a 5-year rule and there was a big change in the voting populace that was there, and that's how I got over the line. But certainly I would have learnt an awful lot of tricks along the road from Jimmy Gray sitting in the corner, and it was a feature of the club. Most nights of the week, if you were there in the corner with Jimmy, people would be coming up looking for him. Can you fix this up for me? He was a real Jim. Will fix it in a sense of he'd take a beer mat, he'd write down your name and what you wanted sorted out for you. And in most cases, Jimmy actually did get it sorted for people. So no, without a doubt, a deserved legend in the club.
Yeah.
And he was very proud of you being president, John.
Well, he got me on the road, so I learned the tricks from Jimmy, as I would always say.
And they say behind every good man is a great woman.
Of course.
And Jimmy would always be there. I had the experience of getting lifts because I lived around the corner with Jimmy and Anne-Marie and Karen were only small children at the time. We'd all be bundled into the car with Greta. But Jimmy was always there to support Greta in whatever she did. Nice and quietly, no big fuss but just he was always there to support her. And there was no doubt Greta was his right-hand man as well, you know. And I still remember him saying, Anya, I didn't want to play in goal, I was put in goal. And Anya, the most important player on the pitch is the goalkeeper. Absolutely. And I'm saying, who is this fella? Who does he think he's fooling? You know, little did I know, this is the Jimmy Gray, the Dublin goalkeeper, the famous Jimmy Gray. But great memories. And on a good Saturday, whether we won, lost or drew the match, Greta, if the ice cream van was in the Phoenix Park,
I know.
He'd put his hand in his pocket and we'd be treated to ice cream cones on the way home, which at the time, that was big treats.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you have space for everyone? 215 teams, 4,000 members.
And we don't own one pitch.
You don't?
Don't own one pitch.
So who owns the pitch outside this clubhouse?
We have it on a lease from the OPW. We have the benefit of local schools giving us their facilities. Right. We've land out in Collinstown. We've land out on the old airport road. And that's all by the work of the executive members in getting these facilities and negotiating the deals and getting it available. And unfortunately, there's a whole huge development going to go on in Glasnevin Industrial Estate where they're going to put 8,000 housing units. And the chief executive of Dublin City Council says that there'll be no full-size pitch put into that.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it's a risk in society that when you turn the green fields into grey buildings, you'll never reverse them back to green fields. And that's where we're going to get caught in a choke here with the large numbers, where we're providing huge service to the community but we're not getting that support back in the context of facilities.
It's true, because, like in smaller towns around the country, obviously rural depopulation is the big problem. Yeah. But in a perverse sort of way, even though at first glance you mightn't think so, in urban areas, not least in Dublin, the growing population and not enough green space is equally as big a problem if you're having to turn away kids. So I can imagine, you guys, 4,000 members. I mean, can you take on another 2,000? It's difficult.
No, it's a huge problem. Like, facilities is one of the biggest challenges that the executive and the membership of this club are actually facing into, is providing facilities. And the weather in this country, as it is at the moment, doesn't make it even easier than in the early months of the year.
Yeah.
But like the founder members that had the foresight to put the club together, and then the amount of fundraising, like bingo. So this hall would be full with the people playing bingo. You were able to open back the stage, and the handball alley was full. So twice a week, and you had the Diagnons and many volunteers solely to try and raise funds to pay for the building, Joe. But so maybe there was more emphasis on trying to maintain the building and fundraise and fundraise and fundraise. And that's maybe now it's trying to facilitate the numbers that have come in. And we have unbelievable people, Colm Davis and many more, that have to organise the fixtures. Can you imagine how many fixtures are involved with 250 teams every weekend? Mother of God, is there an app? Is there what to try and do that? And then people scrambling. Everybody wants to play on the main pitch here, but everybody does get a chance at that. Yeah.
Yeah. A good problem to have, but a bit of a problem nonetheless. Greta, sorry, before we wrap up, this is apropos of nothing, but I know you wrote a book reflecting your life and times. You took up Leaving Cert Maths at 80, did you?
I never did my Leaving Cert. It was always a big regret with me.
Yeah.
But I was an avid reader and I just loved that. But I love maths. I always loved numbers. And my daughter, being the teacher, she said it was never too late. So I had my own private tutor in maths, and what did I get? I got an A1 in foundation maths the first year.
Stop.
Then I got a D, and then I got a C, and then I got a B in maths. Then I gave it up because they changed the whole. So I got out while the going was good.
That is amazing. Fantastic. I saw as well when you were 60, you started jogging 6:30 every morning with your sister.
My sister and I used to jog all around Willow Park.
You're putting us to shame.
I've given it up now.
I think that's fair enough. Thank you so much for giving us a great flavour of the club and the journey it's been on. I mean, it's so impressive. Could we get a round of applause, please, for Greta Gray, John Horan, Anya O'Leary. Thanks so much, guys. So we've got a great sense of the history of the club. Now we're going to hear from some of the current players. We've got all codes represented. So would you welcome, please, from the hurling team. He is, we should mention, AIB Senior Club Hurler of the Year. He doesn't like to talk about it, 2025, but...
Former.
We just mention it. We'll just mention it, 2025. We have AJ Murphy. We have, oh my goodness. Take your pick. Six Nations medals, FAI Cup medals, All-Stars, All-Irelands, Hannah Tyrrell in the room as well. We have Ciara Tierney, who's represented the Dublin Camogie team as well. And she's obviously Na Fianna through and through. Also a goalkeeper. Is everyone here just goalkeepers? That's all.
Most important position on the pitch.
Most important position on the pitch. Yes, indeed. And last but not least, Donal Ryan, who is a dual player, very much so, and has been a games promotion officer as well in the club. You're all very welcome. Round of applause for some current players, please. AJ, I was just reading an interview your dad gave to the Irish Independent. And he was remembering bringing you down to the nursery, which we heard so much about there. And this is kind of 2000, 2001 territory. And he remembers, quote, a mass exodus after the football was over and the hurling was starting. People were like, grand, we're done. And it was a bit of a slow burn to get the hurling up and running. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I suppose around 9:30 in the morning, we would have had football on first for an hour. And then at 10:30, as my dad said, the whole place would have just exited. I think at the start we might have had maybe 6. I've actually a group of friends, 3 brothers, triplets. It would have been me, those 3, and 2 others that would have been there for maybe the first few months. Like, there was very, very small numbers. But in fairness to my dad and Ollie Power, they just kind of kept at it. And over the years, we got more lads that would decided to pick up a hurl. And eventually, I think around maybe under 13, we had 3 teams. And we were able to sustain that for the rest of the juvenile days. So yeah, it was big turnaround.
It's amazing. So imagine you said to everybody that first session or those first few weeks, yeah, this little crop going to win the All Ireland in about 20 years.
Yeah, I would have just laughed at you. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy to turn around over the last few years. But yeah, it was actually the 96s, Donald's brother. They kind of won everything from the 13, 14, 15. And they kind of built a lot of momentum. I remember we were going out, my own age group, we were going out and we were heavily backboned by his brother's age because they had a lot of success. But no, they really kind of drove it on, the 96s. You had Shane Barrett there, John O'Tracy. I'll give Polly a shout out, I suppose. But no, they were hugely successful and they kind of backboned the All-Ireland final winning team, I'd say, last year.
5 minor championships in 6 years and then 4 in a row, 14, 15, 16, 17. So the thing was moving at that stage, and then Senior All Ireland, amazing.
Yeah, I guess the years between myself and AJ were very successful underage in that sense. But I guess you're not really aware of it when you're a young fella. You're just kind of playing for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And then you kind of look back and you're like, geez, yeah, we were good back then, and you've great memories from then to look back on as well.
Yeah. And you're a dual player?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
How's that juggle?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. To be honest, I'd love to tell you which one I prefer, but like that's kind of the issue, that you don't really know which one week to week you're better at or which one you prefer. So that's kind of what lands you in the situation I'm in now. But yeah, it's good. I guess when management are playing ball, it's easy.
Hannah, you are a blow-in.
Yep.
Tell us how you went from Round Tower, Clondalkin to Na Fianna.
Yeah, so I joined Na Fianna 2020 as basically have COVID to thank. Obviously my wife is from Na Fianna. Won a couple of championships with Na Fianna, I think 2011, 2014, stuff like that with the likes of Mary Nevin and co. But I grew up, I didn't start playing GAA till I was about 13. I was at Round Towers. I went off for a little stint with rugby, and when I came back, the team in Round Towers and Clondalkin didn't have a senior team, much like kind of the issues we had here. They just didn't really have a good juvenile section, and after a couple of years that basically caught up with them. So when rugby was given a pause because of COVID, we were allowed to play GAA, and I just basically asked. I was under contract with the Irish Sevens team, but I was kind of thinking of retiring, so I said, do you mind, like, since we can't play rugby and we can't travel, can I play a bit of GAA? And I hadn't played a game in about 6 or 7 years, and yeah, I didn't even have to like transfer or anything like that because I hadn't played, so I just signed up, and I knew a couple of the girls, Leah Caffrey and Lucy Collins and stuff like that, who'd been around a long time, and I jumped in. Do you know what? 2020 was probably my favourite year of playing Gaelic football ever at a kind of a club level, just because after coming out of kind of professional sport for 6 years or so, it was just so refreshing and nice to go back to a sport that I loved, but with kind of the shackles off and stuff like that. And Na Fianna at the time, unfortunately, had been just demoted to Division 2. We had a really young team in transition, but we were still senior championship, and I think we won Division 2 that year and kind of blew the socks off a couple of teams in championship and got to a semi-final that year in 2020, and completely unexpected, I suppose, for the position we were in, but it was brilliant, and it kind of brought me back that graw for Gaelic football that I'd been missing the last few years.
Amazing. The Tyrrell bounce, they call it around here, I think. What were your impressions of Na Fianna from afar? And then what was the reality?
I'd played them a few times when I was with Round Towers. Unfortunately, every time we played them, they were kind of at the pinnacle of their game, as I said. Yeah. They were competing for not just Dublin Championships, but I think 2011 they got to Club All-Ireland final and lost to, I think, Carnacon, unfortunately. Yeah. And Round Towers were always a team that were jumping between senior, inter, Division 1, Division 2. So they were always these giants of players, and couple of Dublin stars, load of players from Armagh, Donegal, from the DCU blow-ins, as we would have called them. But just a huge club with, felt like huge resources, but always very nice to play with and against. So
yeah, and then the reality once you joined?
lovely. It was a little easy. Obviously, I knew Leah Caffrey, particularly from Dublin, and obviously I had connections through my wife. And even I have a picture of myself and my wife in 2014. She was still playing with the team as a goalkeeper. Don't ask me. And I actually have Na Fianna gear on in 2014 because I was supporting them when they beat Foxrock in that championship. And I obviously don't go on to play for Na Fianna for another 6 years or so, but it was almost like prophetic that I would go on and play for them. And yeah, they've been a brilliant club. I always say now that I'm still part of two clubs. Round Towers will always be a huge part of who I am, and I represent them in everything that I do as well. But it's very unusual to be part of two clubs, but to be welcomed by a club who you haven't known that well and that long, and the girls around me have made me feel like I've been here since nursery, which has been really special and really nice. And I haven't got to spend as much time around the club and play as many games as I want because of Dublin GAA and a couple of injuries and stuff like that. But I genuinely believe that my best years of club football and just being in and around the club, and my memories are yet to be made. Oh, great. Because I was going to ask, I mean, that COVID fork in the road, so interesting for you in your career in that you come back and you get the Graw in 20s, you say, and then you win All Ireland's plural with Dublin, and you put in these incredible performance in the final. And the last final you played in, your last game for Dublin, sod's law, you'd tear your ACL. So that was last year. How's the recovery? Are you inching towards the front pitch? Inching is probably the word. It's just incredibly slow. I suppose I'm at peace with it. I had an amazing career in a lot of different sports, and with Dublin, I've obviously incredibly lucky. I was really looking forward to playing a load of club this year. I'm still hoping to go back for kind of some championship games and stuff like that. But the ACL is slow. It's a mental, physical slog, and I'm just kind of working every day to get back and to have a good working knee so that I can start playing Camogie at 39 like Retta. They need a keeper. Ciara, you have been here since nursery, 5-6 years of age, I read.
Yes, so I suppose I wasn't given much of a choice with both my parents having grown up in the club. Myself, my brother and my sister, we'd no option. We were straight in. My earliest memory was probably on the front pitch coming down to nursery. I don't think maybe he was aware, but that Dad realised that there was a camogie going on down in the back pitch. So I was up in the main pitch training with Donald Burke and Peter Feeney and the lads. Possibly to toughen me up, or I'm not too sure what he thought, but toughen the lads up, yeah. So yeah, that was probably my earliest memory. And then I suppose having grown up in the club and looking back, like doing all the cool camps and things, and there's that core group of 98s. So myself, Roisin Dunhu, Alvo Sullivan, Donald, Colin, Liam, like Darren McHugh, we would have all grown up together. And all the lads obviously still playing, myself, Roisin and Alva still playing. So it's a huge part of, I suppose, who I am. It always has been. But yeah, with Mum and Dad, we weren't allowed to shy away from it. Okay. And why goalkeeper? So I actually wasn't in goal initially until about under 13. And I was at a Dublin development trials, and I somehow ended up in goal, and I made a really good save. I don't know how. And ever since that day, I've just gotten stuck there. I always think it's the maddest position in world sport to play in. Yeah, I think you have to be a bit mad to play in goal. I suppose now, like, I couldn't think of playing outfield. You're kind of just, I suppose that's your position. That's what you're used to now. So, yeah, I think every goalkeeper I know is a bit mad. So, like, when someone's, we'll get off in a second. When someone's bearing down on goal, and she's about to, like, and you can just tell she's going for power. She's not going for placement here. I suspect most people are like, they flinch and they try and make themselves smaller to make yourself bigger in the hope that it might hit your body. That part I don't fully get. Yeah, I suppose it's just like, for me, it's always just the ball. So like, you don't think of that. You're just like, just stop the ball. Like, that's your job. And people would be like, great save, well done. And it's like, that's my job. Like, that's... So you're also the Roy Keane of Na Fianna, is Did you ever try goalkeeper? No? Yeah, I'll probably get a bit of slagging. We were minor, and it was a very, very hot day, and I might have stood outside with a top off there, got badly sunburnt, and we were sent up to the bogies to play Finbars, and I said to my dad, I was like, I'm not playing outfield with sunburn. So we had to tell our goalkeeper Jono he was playing outfield because I wasn't getting a slap in the back with sunburn. So
I retired straight after that from go.
Okay. Any good saves?
No, unfortunately not.
You can see why we sent Kira in to toughen up the boys.
Why not? I have sunburn. So the football, Donal, Na Fianna has 5 county titles, 69, 79, and then the 3 in a row, which Anya was telling us about, 99, 2001. Obviously, Kilmacud, Vincent's recently have been, dominant. But back in a county final last year?
Yeah, last year in 22 as well. Yeah,
And 22 as well. So signs that the football, the men's senior football is starting to get back on track again in a big way. What can you tell us about all that?
yeah. I guess we're always fighting that title up in a hurling club now on the football side. So
That is mad, by the way, isn't it? It is just insane, the hurling thing. The All Ireland has gone the hurling way.
Like it's funny because you do. I don't know if it's a case if it's easier to go out for a puck with your mates than it is when you're seeing the kids out on the road. You do see a lot more of them with the hurls these days.
Right.
Maybe than you might do with the football. But look, like I guess they're just doing what they're enjoying. From a football point of view, I guess we're always trying to push for it. Like that is the goal at the end of the day, is to get that Dublin Senior Championship.
It's so competitive, the Dublin Senior Championship.
Exactly.
It's
like I
standards
think,
frightening.
Yeah, there's a reason why Coola and Bowden in the past 2 years have kind of pushed on and really pushed for that All Ireland as well. Similar enough to the hurling too. That the Dublin Senior Championship is seriously competitive, and like some of the toughest games. Certainly, I'd say from our point of view in terms of the All Ireland run, definitely like Martins, say, and Loughrea and that All Ireland run were tough games, but like the toughest game of that year was probably the Crokes game in that final. Like that kind of pushed us to our pinnacle. Like,
yeah. How's the Camogie going?
Good, yeah. I suppose I haven't been lucky enough to get a Dublin medal yet, but it's a work in progress. I think it's in a really good position. We were in 2 finals in the last couple of years, and I suppose to get an experience of that was amazing. And like I just remember in 23 walking around like before the game, and obviously you're focusing the game, but there's such a sense of like pride that we get to wear the jersey that, like, the likes of Greta, Anne Heffernan, Mary O'Connell all got to wear, and you're carrying that. And that's something we are aware of. We do have our sights set on a Dublin medal and hopefully further. It's in a really good position at the moment, and yeah, hopefully soon.
Because I was reading, so it started with 200 members in 55, and at the 50-year anniversary in 2005, I was reading at that stage there were about 1,400 members, and so it's gone from 1,400 in the space of 20 years to just over 4,000. But it seems the female component has just like exploded in that period. The number of teams has tripled. So I guess you would have lived through that to an extent. Just suddenly far more female players in and around the club.
Yeah, 100%. I think like a huge part of that has come from like the likes of Niall Cooper and the lads going into the local schools.
Right.
And I remember I was in Corpus Christi down the road. I was probably one of the few girls in my class that was in Na Fianna. But like when, Niall was coming in playing like for an hour or whatever, then people are like, I'll come down to nursery on Saturday. And I suppose it's things like that are so important. And like, I think it was Anya was saying, like if you come from a sporting family, it's easy for your parents to bring you here. Whereas it ended up like when you go into schools like that, you attract those new members and those new players that their parents mightn't have even been aware of camogie or football or whatever in Na Fianna. So I think that it took years to get there, but doing things like that has like hugely contributed.
Yeah. And I mean, just based anecdotally or what you're seeing, we often hear the kind of the teenage years, it's tough to keep young girls in sport. That's the big drop off there. Have you found that here or what do you observe? I
think maybe in the past more so.
Right.
It's probably considered more cool now to play and stuff.
Interesting.
I remember, growing up, like I said, I think, again, Mum and Dad thought we were hanging around. We'd be down on the front pitch with the lads playing angles very innocently and things like that. And I suppose it was being around that and that contributed to like me staying and other players and the friends you make. And I'd say at the moment there's a really good retention rate. I do think it's it has taken a lot of work to get here. I think there's still a lot of work to be done, but it is definitely getting better.
Hannah, you must have seen a difference from. I'm certainly older than you, but like my memory of childhood was like one or two girls might play on the boys' soccer and GAA team until about 12 or 13, and then. And obviously, I wouldn't have even witnessed the conversation, but very awkwardly, I presume someone would have said, "Oh, well, you're done now. You can't keep playing with the lads." And I don't know what became of those girls who love sport at that age. And I think that was a very common experience. So to hear and read where it is now is just wonderful.
Yeah, look, and I was one of those girls. I was the only girl who played on a soccer team, like, or a football team of all boys. And I think I was the only girl in the league at the time. And then, yeah, when I was 12, I was basically told, you got to go find a girls team, but there was none. And, I was, I suppose, confident enough to go and try find something else. And I thankfully fell into GAA because of it. But, like, there are probably girls all over the country that maybe didn't have the same look, I suppose, that I did, or confidence to go and try it, and just left sport behind. But I definitely think we're in a better place from a Camogie aspect. I think the Scourtgate thing will help keep a lot more girls in sport, but just having that choice in the women's football game. There was a huge campaign around colour of shorts and stuff like that, around comfort and stuff like that, not having to wear white. Again, they're very simple changes that don't necessarily affect the game or the skill of the game, but will keep our numbers high and keep people playing. But like as Ciara said, it's the friendships that you make. It's the friends you make through club, and club are essentially your other family, and they're the ones. And long after you're finished playing, it's the memories that you have with them. But I always say to young girls, like, if you can keep you and your friends together, I guarantee you will keep more of you, because if one drops off, more than likely another will drop off, and then eventually they all kind of go, because the enjoyment is gone a little bit to those friendships. But we do a great job here. I think I read a stat there a couple of years ago that we actually have more underage girls teams than we do boys teams in some sections, which is phenomenal. But again, it's just testament to the work that's been put in by all GPOs, current and former, and just like volunteers and club, and all the parents who get out and coach and everything else to keep them coming back, because we play the sport because we love it and we enjoy it. And if it wasn't fun, we wouldn't do it. And so we must be doing something right at the club to have this many members and keep people coming back.
Current players, thank you all so much. So a round of applause for AJ Murphy, Ciara Tierney, Hannah Tyrrell, and Donal Ryan, everybody.
Thank you.
So we have had a first panel where we got a great sense of the history of Na Fianna. We've just heard from some current players, and now glory days. That's the theme of this third and final panel. Happy to say we have Mary Nevin with us. Mary helped Na Fianna to their first Dublin Senior Championship in football in 2009. People will know Mary as well from her exploits with Dublin. She was an All-Star in 2004, and then All-Ireland winner in 2010, eventually, against Tyrone. That was after defeats in 2003, 2004, 2009. And then the other fella, Senan Connell.
No medals.
Senan, the Westlife years, I think they were referred to earlier on the famous Na Fianna 3-in-a-row team, 99, 2000, 01. Also in the Leinster club in 99, and of course got to the All-Ireland final where they lost to a great Crossmaglen. No shame in that, but real glory days for Na Fianna. And of course with Dublin, 98 to 06, 3 times a Leinster champion in 02, 05 and 06. That it?
Good days.
Good days, I'd say they were. That sounded very exciting, the way Anya painted the 90s in this club. So, like the kind of the nursery's happening, the kids are coming through, they're excited, more numbers are turning up. The men's senior team are winning 3 in a row. Do you have memories of that, Mary? Were you around that neck of the woods then?
Early 90s. I joined the club in 91.
So you're okay.
As a 13-year-old.
Right.
So
you might have seen the beginnings of the nursery.
Yeah, the shoots were beginning to grow when I came here. I didn't have a club before that. I just played. I have a very proud Galway father, and we just used to hurl every weekend in the local park. And when I joined Dominican in my secondary school, I met a teacher, Carmel Gray, and I thought, I'll join a team. I didn't realise girls played. I didn't know girls played on a team. And I went out on my first training session, and Carmel said, have you got a team? Have you got a club? And I said, no. And she said, well, you're joining Na Fianna. So
you saw the talent straight away.
I don't know, but it was funny, because a week later I was in the local park with my father hurling again, and a woman walked over to me and said, do you have a club? Because we're Whitehall, Cullimkill, and we're starting a girls' section.
How good were you?
Do you want to play with us? And I
who
said,
else was coming knocking at your door? Was Alex Ferguson
no
on
money.
to you?
Joe, now, can I just put in here? When Mary was playing, we used to go because the girls' team were so good and we were winning. Like, we'd have a match in the afternoon, the girls were winning championships, and it was like, Na Fianna'd have the ball. Give it to Mary! Quick! She was just electric. We were saying we could have done her as a free taker on that team at the time, you know.
Well,
and she will never say that, Joe, by the way. She was brilliant.
Well, I do see in the when you made the breakthrough in 2009 to win the Dublin County title, by a single point, you scored 111 to 110, and Mary Nevin weighed in with a nice 8 points, 6 from frees.
Good day.
Thanks
That
very
was a
much.
good day.
That is it. I mean, that's good going.
Good day. But you know, we that day was a long day coming. It was a long time coming. I joined in '91, and it was Camogie, and I loved my Camogie. And we had some great days, and I have great memories of fabulous people looking after us. And I have to mention Paddy Birchall, a really proud Kilkenny man. He was our coach along with Carmel Gray when I first joined, and over those few years, he nurtured us, and Carmel did, and it became a family, and I grew into it, and they're your formative years, 13, 14, 15, made great friends, really enjoyed it, had great fun, and it didn't matter if we won or lost, because Paddy would always bring us up for 7-Up and a few packs of crisps up in the bar. So they're my brilliant memories, of that.
Isn't it amazing? People remember the ice creams, the crisps.
Yeah,
honestly, it's just it's the best, and it's always sunny.
Yeah, and then when I got to about 17, I was playing with the seniors with some fantastic players in this club. Like we have a fabulous tradition of Camogie in this club. But that year we got knocked out very early, so there was a lot of twiddling of thumbs, and there was talks of sitting in the bar for the summer, and we better do something. So there was a decision made: let's just put a football team in. Let's just enroll in a football team, and that's how that kicked off when I was 17, 18, and that's how Ladies Gaelic started in the club. Really an offshoot of a bad Camogie year.
So when you win that first title, 99.
That was junior. Yeah, we went on. We lost the senior title in 2000. Then.
Yeah. So that same year, the men win their first senior of the 3 in a row, the team you're on. So you joined here at 23. Is that right? 23 years of age.
Yeah, Joe. You didn't want to go there, but fair play to you.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's great.
Senan was here as a 5-year-old in nursery. I mean, what do you want me to say?
Yeah. No, I was here. No, I was 22. My sister was here. Play with Carmel. She was the Fianna as well. At the end of her career, she had a great career. To people, Marie won an All Ireland with Dublin in 1984. She was full forward on the last Dublin senior team to win an All Ireland, which is 1984. So on my road when I go up, people used to say to me, "You're not even the best player in your own house." Like when people were picking teams, they were picking my sister. And that's the truth. So anyway, look, Marie was here, Joe. So I know there was a massive amount of connections at that time. I know there's a backstory in that, but when I joined, it was 20. I was coming at 22. It took till I was 23 when I got here, and then it just went stratosphere. But we'd great mates like Tom Lynch, Stephen McLinchy's down there, Mark Foley's. Like we were all the same vintage. We were close by. The lads, anyone know in the end in the Phoenix Park race course, we all drank at the end. We all knew each other, so it was a fairly seamless transfer across. And myself and Mick Alvin came together, Joe, at that time, which Mick was a huge addition as well.
And was part of it. So I actually hadn't realised all the links you had. Was part of it just to play a higher standard of football, to give yourself the best chance of making it for Dublin. Was that on your mind as well? That'd be part of it.
Joe, it's a mad one at the time. You think of the 90s, that great Dublin team that was there, and it would have been very hard to. We played minor, played underage, blah blah blah. Like all the lads, like AJ and the lads that were here, Ciara, Hannah, Donald. But I was told literally the team I was playing for, Plunkets at the time, were gone junior, and I said, look, you need to keep yourself in the shop window. So you need to be playing Division 1 football. It's a mad one. It sounds like that. So I was 21. I playing Dublin 21s, and the Fianna was the obvious choice. And it was great because socially we had a great time and we won as well. So there's a perfect mix, Joe,
Give us a word on this team, the 3 in a row team, 99, 2000, 01. Yourself, Desi, Jason Sherlock, a fella called Kieran McGeaney.
Yeah.
And probably others I'm not mentioning.
Yeah. I know it's a mad one when you think of what all those guys have gone on to do there, myself, Stevie, and Mick Alvin we travelled down to watch the Dublin 21 or 20s there in Wexford, playing against Wexford during the night. The connections are still there. Obviously, we're still friendly with Geezer, not as much, and Daisy we see all the time, but the connections. But I have to say, Joe, and this is the thing about Na Fianna at the time, like we were off doing our thing with the county team for a lot of time.
Yeah.
So it was like we three sets of brothers, the Lynches, Tomo and Dermo, Stevie Gray's down there, the connection with the Grays, Greta talking there. Stevie was in goal in that All-Ireland, the team that got the All-Ireland final. Stevie Gray, Jerry Gray, the Lynch, the Foley's, Mark and Ian Foley, Pat McCarthy, I think is a great soccer player, great player. Sean Ford, who was in from Mayo, would have been involved with the girls team, Mary, as well. They were actually the ones keeping the show on the road, Joe.
Of course, yeah.
So, all year we were gone, and then we'd rock back in.
The superstars.
And the great thing was, there was no hierarchy at all. The lads are looking at us saying, well, we've done the hard work, right, you're back now, and sort of. And then there was put your shoulder to the wheel again, and off you go. So it literally, and I say this all, it wasn't us. It actually was the lads that were here. Like, they were training with 8 and 10 players in the muck and the hurling, the rain, doing the hills and the magazine hills. And when we came back in, they were at a level where they were driving us on. And we literally were finishing county on Sunday and back training on Tuesday. I remember the Thurles games. You remember the Kerry Thurles matches that year? Yeah. And that was an unbelievable year, because it rocked on, and people say, there's no bands nowadays. The lads are used to the band. You overload. This training crack. Oh, I'm in the red zone here. I can't train anymore. Like, you talk to Desi now. Desi say, come on, Louis, let's start training. We're in the red zone. Whereas fellas are pulling away. But I remember we played the All-Ireland Club final, and the place was rocking here. I know we'd lost, but it was just an amazing time in our careers. And the girls were, like, we were in tandem. We were winning games together. It was just brilliant and electric. Like, 3 of the lads end up marrying 3 of the girls. You know what I mean? Like, that's how tight we were. That's how tight Na Fianna was at the time, Borgie, Fordy, Tomo Lynch, they all married, the connections. But we were back here, and the club was on wheels. There was a big canopy outside. The president was here, and you're literally after playing an All-Ireland Club final. I remember Desi grabbed me somewhere here about 10 o'clock, 2 points behind. He said, we were with Dublin, and it was a Friday game. And Saturday, Dublin were playing Galway in a league match, and Desi pulled me aside and says, saying, come here, Tommy wants us to play tomorrow. I said, I'm standing here with 2 points. So what? Tommy Carr was managing Dublin. He says, Tommy wants us to play tomorrow. Will we go down, have a think about it? And I said, here, we'll put down to 2 points then. And literally we had to think about it and said, no, we'll go. So the following day we played an All-Ireland Club final on the Friday, and then the Saturday we met the team in Houston Station, 10 o'clock, travelled down. Desi come on at half time, I come on with 5 minutes to go. We got a result and came back. But it was the time of your life. It was just amazing, doing that. And then we just rocked on, and we kept going through the tourless games. We were bet Tuesday night back training in Na Fianna and kept going again. It was amazing times.
They were great times, and it was they were simple times as well. You trained, and
there was an innocence about
it. In the bar, but it was. And in fairness, those early ladies football teams, they were unmanageable. I don't know how the lads looked after us.
So,
like, we
look, don't ruin any lives, but what do you mean?
This, well, there was
feral. Okay,
it was just for fun, and I remember
they weren't feral. That is terrible. We were feral. The girls were putting manners on us. That's the truth. I remember
Fordy and Birchie had us.
Some of that stuff was illegal, but they were shouting down. You just couldn't.
They tried to good cop, bad cop us,
right.
And Fordy was generally the bad cop. But there's times now Birchie would row in, and then you'd step up a little bit. But I remember like rows on the sideline, because they'd be fighting over who'd get to play full forward. Because he knew if you weren't playing well, if you were full forward, you could have a cigarette. Some of the girls in the early days, But yeah, it was just great fun, and great nights here, like great nights. If you didn't play well, there was a good chance you went out and the air was out of your tires. There was a lot of cars deprived of air.
I think it's that, Joe. The club was, Mary, you remember the club was changing a lot as well. It was developing into this, and the balcony outside. So I remember summer days where literally the girls would be playing a massive championship match, and then we'd have a championship, and we'd all come back here, and we're sitting outside summer's days and all drinking together, having a couple of cans out in the park, and it was just like so innocent, so social. But like we trained so hard. Now we played hard, but trained hard. But that was the times. We talked to a lot of lads like that played inter-county football from different counties, the Kerry boys, and that was the culture at the time. You trained hard, but your night out, so like the enjoyment was there, and that's why we played. I don't know whether the enjoyment is there as much now, but that's the way it was then.
God, yours sounds better. I think the 90s was just better. I mean, I just think we're all reaching that conclusion. Sorry to ask this question. I know everyone kind of is fascinated by McGeeney. What was he like?
I'd say the lads would probably agree. But it was an amazing one because when he came, he wasn't actually known nationally. I know that might sound mad, Joe. It was 99, okay? So little backstory without boring people. We were in Coppers. As everything happens, that's where you sign players, isn't it? And I remember we were out to play a National League game, and Geezer was in, and he was living in Dublin. He was working for the Irish Sports Council at the time, John Tracy.
Yeah.
And Desi ended up chatting. Desi said, Jesus, I know him, but I can't figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, that's how much. And then it came to him, Kieran McGee, Armagh, we would have been playing against, blah, 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 blah. So they got chatting. We were after losing the county final, the Crokes, in 1998. And they sort of bullied us a bit, if that makes sense. So Geezer got chatting to Desi, and they were chatting away, and he was saying he was in Dublin, and he was, I think he was actually, might have been training with a couple of clubs just to get a feel for it. And he sort of said to Desi, what are you thinking? And Desi said, no, we're going to give this a massive rattle now next year. And they went off, exchanged numbers, and got back, as the story goes. And Geezer got back and said, look, are you serious with it? And he said, yeah, absolutely. He goes, right, well, it sounds good. The fit sounds good. And he said, not only that, but there's a lad living with me as well who happened to be Des Mackin. And everyone here would know Des Mackin. I mean, geez, you're getting a bonus there as well. Des Mackin is a seriously good-looking bloke as well. So he just rocks into the club, and he's blown us all out of the water. You know, this is horrible stuff now. We're not loving him at all from a social point of view. But the two of them are, there you go. But Joey asked the question to answer it. In the four walls of the change room, he absolutely a different bloke, you know. Just really good crack, set standards. And when he talked, he didn't say an awful lot because everything was actions to him.
Yeah.
You know, he led by example on the pitch. We played again. I went on record saying this before the lads played the hurling final this year. They were on a couple of people on asking about Geezer, and we played a friendly up in Simonstown, his very first game, and he was unbelievable. I remember Freddie Duignan saying to me, we weren't playing, but Geezer was playing. I don't know why that was. The Dublin lads weren't able to play, but the Armagh lads, I swear. But anyway, Freddie Duignan says he's after doing the job of all six backs there.
Yeah.
And Geezer came in, and he actually apologised. He said, look lads, I'm really sorry I wasn't on my game tonight. And we were there, oh my God, what's the come? And he was just brilliant. But socially he was amazing. He fitted in hand in glove.
Right.
He got on with everybody so well, and he just drove standards, and he was really good. And he had a perfect foil in Sean Ford beside him, because Fordy was rural, tough, Mayo man, win the ball, lay it off, and Geezer had the finesse as well as all the toughness as well. I do remember Geezer one day when we weren't playing well. It might have been the third year. We were getting a bit sort of tired, and we're in Parallel Park, and we'd had a match, and we fell over the finishing line. And Geezer says, right, and he just called everyone, the small change room there, Mary, and he says, right, and he's through gritted teeth. He says, that's not good enough for that. Like, you're not playing that. I said, I bet you if I look in everyone's gear bag, you all have the going out gear down there. But there was more fellas scattering like that. Mine wasn't in the bottom of the bag, it was ironed and hanging up. I was like,
you had the boot cuts ready, did you?
Yeah, you better. Do you remember the boot cuts?
Well, they're back now. They're back.
Yeah, they're back in, yeah. But that was it. They were the times, weren't they, Mary? But look, we had players, but they had players as well. It was unbelievable.
So tell us, you back up 09, Mary, in 11?
Yeah.
And get to an All-Ireland final?
We do. I mean,
bloody Cora Staunton.
Well, it was more than her, but yeah. Like from about 2000, it was our first senior championship, and we lost. But Ballybowden St. Ennis had hit a huge purple patch.
10 in a row.
9 in a row.
9 in a row.
9 in a row, and they were, they had players from everywhere. They were just building year on year, and it was very humbling having to play them every year and get hockeyed every year. But, we kept building, we kept pushing, we kept, setting our own standards, we kept going back to the well. It's what I keep saying to the kids now.
No more smoke breaks for the full forwards. Like, you really went, you pushed it to crazy levels. Yeah.
And I remember in 2009, the rumour was going around that Ballybowden had already got their T-shirts made for the 10 in a row.
Oh.
And it was the semi-final. And
why any time a T-shirt is printed, it's like,
I'd say it was we started that rumour, but it got into the dressing room anyway, and it just,
we actually printed them.
That's probably, but actually just transpired that Ballybowden were beaten by Marnogue in the semi-final.
Yeah.
So we didn't even get to play them in the final that year. We played Marnogue, and that was a massive turning point in those years of all those fabulous women who worked so hard to establish that section. And those early years, Greta talks about the differences and forging a path for women in this club. And it still had to happen in the 90s. Like, we still had a lot of struggles just to articulate our worth and to be present and to be seen. And like, there was the senior men, and then there was minor boys, and then if we were lucky we might get a pitch after that they trained on. And then you talk, that's right through the organisation, and it wasn't just Na Fianna. It was a sign of the times as well. It was the 90s. I mean, Ladies Gaelic was only initiated in 1974. So we had to take that time. We had to push on. I mean, I even remember my own fights. I was the free taker, and I was always given out that I was given 20 training balls, and the lads always had miters to train with their frees, and it's a completely different ball, different weight, and just simple things like that, like why are we different? Why is this happening? And we had really good people in the club that supported us, really good chair people, and pushed it on, and like we're in a much better place now, and it's just fabulous to see, and to see we have different challenges now. Now it seems like anyone who ever had a female in the area is down here. So we have a massive underage section of girls, and they need nurturing and support and guidance, and we've great coaches, great people pushing that on. So look, it's fabulous to see. We've come from a very different place, but I think the future is really good, and I love to see this club has always pushed on and been a leader in the GA and championed women. And it's great to see.
I always think
wouldn't it be great? Isn't it great for Carmel, Greta? Like, how proud must they be to see where the women's game has come from? Like, I'm living locally here as well, and like nearly every girl has either a Na Fianna top on or a Camogie stick or a hurling stick in their hand. Isn't that amazing just to see that?
It's fabulous. And someone talked about the dropout rates when girls hit their teenage years, and like we really have to look after that. And it's part of the whole integration with the GA. That. There has to be a firm commitment to that. Derek Kent is coming in, and there's been talks that could be delayed, and I really hope that isn't, because for me, if you think this is just about organising and amalgamating sporting organisations, you're missing the point. These organisations emanated at a time when culturally and socially women had a very different place in society, and it was very gendered, and the notion of what it was to be a woman was different. And that's why those organisations, emanated from that and had to be separate from the GAA. So this is about actually recognising where we are culturally, socially as a country. And the GAA has always been a mirror to who we are. It's much more than a sporting organisation. And if we keep those values in mind and push on, we can manage any of the logistics.
Yeah, well said. I always, Paul Rouse, the historian, UCD. I always remember the line when he said it. I was like, God, when you put it that way, he always said, "Men walked on the moon before women played in Croke Park." Because that's where you're coming from.
I mean, like Greta talked about the nylon tights. I remember playing camogie and trying to hide my bicycle shorts. I remember being on a pitch and the ref took a woman aside, and said, "You need to get them off or get off the pitch." And I remember she turned around and said to him, "Jeez, I've just had a baby. They're holding me in." And he said, "All right, you're all right." And I said, I must remember that one. That is a really good one to keep my bicycle shorts.
Top answer.
Yeah, but there was still all that element of there's a very clear view of how we need you to look.
Yes.
And it's taken a long time to break that mold, and we have to keep pushing, because my playing career is finished, but I am a mother to 2 young girls in this club, and I'm still pushing to make sure our girls are seen and heard and are right there. We have worked really hard to get to this place, and you only have to look internationally how what we assume to be the norm can be very vulnerable, and times can change, and we have to keep pushing on.
And what's your sense when you watch your girls about the club? How do they feel? And not just your girls specifically, they respect their privacy, but in the main, how do they feel as part of the club, as part of the GAA, as athletes, as sports people? Is it all very normal to them, and or do you sense there's still any sneaking sense of, is it more the preserve of the boys than us though, or what's your read?
Not really. Like, they're 6 and 10, so they absolutely love it, and they're very aware that it's all girls playing, and they see that, but that campaign, you have to see it to be it, really is very relevant and very important. When I was growing up, there were no role models for ladies football, and we had to forge our own path. But anytime there's an opportunity to show women's sports on the television or in the paper, I'm showing the girls, saying, look at that. Like, I'm playing a little bit of golf now. I'm showing Sarah and Ellie Ford at Corda and saying, look, that's the best golfer in the world. You know, and you could be that. They do these little juvenile discos now and again down here for the under 10s and under 11s. And
Well, Grell's got a few stories
Oh
for you.
yeah,
You know,
now,
I mean, you need
now
to
they're
watch that
very
window.
juvenile.
You need to watch that window in the ladies' jacks.
And I said to Sarah, like, do you want to go down to it? Like, there's going to be the 2015 girls and the 2015 boys. And she said, do boys play Gaelic as well?
No, come on.
And for me,
Wow.
just to hear that from my own daughter, that just shows the change.
That's amazing, actually, isn't it? Wow. Sorry to change subject totally. I was reading when you retired, Senan, and I had not realised this about you. So in the Irish Independent, it said, in his day, so you know you're getting old when they're writing that about you.
I know.
In his day, people talked about him as one of the fittest footballers in Ireland, and he was called the Moby Road Runner. Is that news to you? Is that a thing?
That is actually news to me.
All right, okay.
No,
So you weren't known as the Moby Road Runner?
No, well, did Carl Jackson write that? No.
I didn't see it. No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the guy with 2 pints before a league match. Were you one of the fittest footballers in the country?
Probably. You didn't realise, you're just in it, aren't you? But it would have been fairly fit. It was a job. Like, it's funny. It's what you did what I did with Na Fianna with the lads here, and then you transferred to the county. It's funny, and Mary would say the same. You get to the county, and everything that got you there, you're told, no, you don't do that here. Your job is to get it and give it to Desi and Jayo and the lads that are proper footballers. Really, my job was I was a runner, if you know what I mean, and it was just you were part of a process. Piano movers and piano players. So I was a piano mover, and that's the way it was. So it was all about fitness. Look, we slogged our way. We did the dirty work in the hills, the magazine hills with the club and the county, and that was fine with me. There was no problem at all, and I didn't like getting bet. Wheelo be with Dublin, Wheelo would be pushing it out, and you could never shake Desi in runs.
Right.
Like, Desi was running one knee from the time he was 16. He was an original cruciate. Like, the scar goes on there down, but he was just so bulky. I always used to say, if he had 2 knees, he would have been unbelievable. But you'd be doing these runs with Na Fianna or Dublin, and I could hear him behind me, and I'd just inject a bit of pace, and I said, Jesus Christ, I can't shake him. He's unbelievable.
Just attitude.
Well, look, you'd say that Desi is demeanour, like, what a legend in Na Fianna. And but he has... Like, he's so good, and like he was instigational in myself and Mick coming here as well, and he got a management team on board, Brendan O'Malley and John Caffrey and Pilar Caffrey on board, and Desi would have been central to getting that and the success that was here. But he has there's a burning desire. Like, don't let the facade, don't be surprised with what you see and say, he's Desi. There's a burning desire to succeed in everything he does, like tiddlywinks. We used to play Astro soccer down there, a bit of a GBA thing going on, and if the Astro soccer, as we all did, you know well about. But if you were being bet, with Desi, he'd say, if 5 aside, he'd say, right, lads, it'd be a great one to win, wouldn't it? At half time. And then if you were battering to their team, he'd say, come on, lads, give us a game. There was always an angle with him, everything he did. But that's what made him so good, I suppose. Yeah,
because he did kind of keep that well hidden from the cameras. The Conor Morris sketches impersonation of him, where he's borderline falling asleep.
Yeah.
But a kind of extraordinary thing for the club that last year you have the Dublin senior hurling manager and the Dublin senior football manager. Something cooking here. That's
both great. Like Nelly and Colin Callaghan was here as well. Was a great footballer. Nelly was a great footballer. Desi was an unbelievable. I just say the hurling. If there was football and hurling separated, Na Fianna would have football championships as many as hurling championships. Because at the time, way back when we rewind, like, I suppose football was the sexy thing to do when we were winning. So everybody was dropping hurleys to play football. And now it's brilliant that hurling is the sexy thing to do now. But like the likes of AJ and Don Ryan and these lads, there's so many good hurlers are brilliant footballers. The 3 Burks, like the lads that are there, and these is there. I taught the 3. I had the privilege of teaching the 3 lads, and they're unbelievable hurlers. Yeah. Like, if they played football, Na Fianna would have a football championship as well in their back pocket. They're unbelievable footballers too,
I'm conscious everyone has homes to go to. Mary, you get the tough task of putting a nice bow on the night and summing up what Na Fianna means to the area and all the people in the room and beyond, and your daughters and anyone else you care to mention. It does seem like a very, very special place.
It does. I suppose I can only say from my own perspective, but coming here as a 12, 13-year-old, I suppose I found my identity here. I found a second family here, and it was said here already. I found a place that matched my ambition. This club has always been forward thinking and dynamic, and with great people. And I've had the privilege of playing here throughout my career, both codes, and representing the club on the county stage. And I've also had the privilege of being part of the start of the ladies football in this club. And I have a lot of satisfaction looking on now, seeing how far we've progressed. We still have more to do, and we have other challenges with all the numbers of girls coming through to nurture and get the best out of them. But, this club is the place for them, and, I'm just very proud and privileged to have been a part of it. I think when you consider it your family, at times you take a lot for your family, at times you give a lot to your family. I got a lot from this club over all those fabulous years of playing. And it's my time to give back now and have my girls here and coach and help out and do what I can. And I try to do that. And I think that's the cyclical nature of being part of this club.
Thank you so much. That was great to get your sense of your time here. Sounds like it was a fun time and hopefully good years ahead. Mary Nevin, Senan Connell, everybody. And just to say, big thanks to everybody at the club for having us. Thanks to the team for making the place look brilliant and putting everything together. And of course to AIB, again, a bit like the Slot Neil night. They dreamt it up and it was their idea to come and get to meet a club. It's a great thing to do. So we've really enjoyed doing it. So thanks to AIB for their support. And we'll let you wander home. Thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate it. Cheers.